This episode is sponsored by Bigger City. Thank you so much for supporting us and helping our show to grow.
Hello and welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. I'm Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser, and today I am a summertime boy. Seeing all the shows coming through Los Angeles, including A Strange Loop, which Don and I both adore. We'll talk about that later. Yay. And just kind of enjoying this strange, I don't know, I feel like the heat is going to come out and grab us, but it's not so bad yet.
Oh, no, we've got it up here.
Oh, well,
happy to share.
I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and today I'm, I guess, a summer boy. I don't know. I also loved A Strange Loop. We're seeing Clue next week. The Cluesicle. And
one of the most unnecessary musicals of our time.
Living life and looking forward to being back in podcast land.
Nice. My name is Michael Willer. I'm a chubby chaser, and I'm an apologetic boy because my voice sounds, as you may have noticed, like I am recovering from a cold, which, shock and surprise, I am recovering from a cold. So I will do my best to edit out all of the gross shit. You're welcome, podcast land.
Hey there, my name's Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood. And today I am definitely a big old theater boy because while everyone else is going to see Clue next week, I get to go see it this afternoon.
Oh, wow.
Very excited.
Well.
Very much looking for, I'm a huge Clue movie fan. So
okay, there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
I know it's not the same thing, but I'm looking forward to this a lot. Anyway. Thank you to our Patreon supporters. Without you guys, we would never be able to pull this off.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much to Bigger City. And we are so looking forward to attending Bigger Bash in Las Vegas, September 6th through 8th.
Yes.
This year, 2024. Very excited. And as always, thank you so much to our supporters at Big Fig and Bearskin. You guys help us keep the lights on and the microphones rolling.
Yes,
Indeed.
Absolutely. We super appreciate it, everybody. And thank you to our regular everyday listeners. The show wouldn't exist without you guys. So everybody collectively, thank you. You're awesome. Now, I want to hear about A Strange Loop.
Also, as a quick reminder, even if you do not support us on Patreon, going out there, giving us more reviews, giving us more likes on the various sites you download us from helps us get the word out. That's always
true.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Also, use promo code BigFatGayPod for 15% off your purchase of any bearskin products as a way to support us.
Yeah,
and support yourself. Support your balls.
Yeah.
That's kind of like jock support.
Whole package.
So before we get to pop culture, this is kind of pop culture.
I think it's very pop culture.
We went to see, some of us went to see A Strange Loop since the last time we saw it. Now, for those of you who don't remember the show, it won the Tony Award a few years back. And it's one of the very few shows I've ever seen that's about the life and experiences of a gay, large-sized man of color who happens to be an usher working at a Disney theater, writing a musical about an usher working at a Disney musical theater.
I would also point out, not only did it win at least one Tony, I can't remember how many, but it's also won the 2020 Pulitzer Prize for drama. It is exquisite. It is raw. It is irreverent. It is important.
And speaking as a fat person of color, I have never felt so seen by a show in my life where like every aspect of it just clicked so hard. Right down to the point where like it talks about sort of the weight of their Christian background weighing down on them through a filter of race on top of that. So it's not even exactly this. It's amazing. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
It won for Best Musical.
There was so much about the show that I knew and a lot more that I didn't know that I feel like I was glad was not spoiled. Because I feel like with a lot of these shows like Fat Ham, which Dan and I were also able to see in LA, also phenomenal. There was so much in the advertising that I saw afterwards when I was posting about the show that just moments where the show goes places you don't expect, but that they feel like they need to show to sell audiences on it.
So you feel like the advertisement spoils some of the surprises?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I guess I didn't see enough advertising to feel that way. By the way, the reason we're bringing up Fat Ham in the same breath is that Fat Ham is a play on Fat Hamlet, which is a African-American retelling of Hamlet inside a home in the South. And it's an amazing show out of, what is that?
That was also something we talked about on the podcast.
It is, yeah.
In the 2020 times.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We're sort of ahead of ourselves. Yeah, but let's get the pop culture music going.
I can't hear this music and not picture dancing penguins. I don't know why. And slide in with the jazz hands.
And here we are.
Yay!
With more music news.
Yeah. Keeping the music theme going. So I'm curious, this is something that kind of really happened in hiatus times for us.
Yes.
Gay Pride Month, June.
So I'm curious, how many of our listeners saw this play out in live time, or this is the first they're hearing of it. But Rolling Stone covered it. Miles Clay interviewed Chris Conde about his kind of performance going viral on conservative Twitter, and then it blowing up even more in just I don't know, happy, good people.
We should say that Chris Conde is a fat, queer rapper.
Yes.
And he just kind of stepped in at the last minute at this minor gay pride event in the sticks of Austria.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a spa town known for its salt because it's near Salzburg and all that. Anyway, I digress. But I've been near there.
So the cool thing about the Austria performance was that he wasn't initially planning on performing at all. He was in the area on a tour, and he got the invite to go and show up at this tiny sort of outdoor venue. And he was like, I don't know if I'm going to go. Decided to show up anyway on his off day between performances, shows up, kills it. Some people take a clip of it. It's his TikTok that then gets picked up by conservative media. They start tweeting about it, saying all of these sort of generic inflammatory things about it. And it blows him up, takes his image really huge. And other non-conservative people start applauding his openness and his performance. And here's the thing we haven't mentioned yet. He got his start, sort of his first performance persona, because he was performing in a sports bar. There was it was opening act, and there was a football game on, and nobody was paying attention to him. And he started stripping on stage during his set. And that got people's attention. and it not just got people's attention, but people really responded to it. And from that point onward, he performs essentially in a harness and a jockstrap. And he's this big, handsome, fat man rapping, doing a phenomenal job at just being the rap performer, but also showing off his body.
He looks fabulous.
This is what people are responding to, both positively and negatively. And hilariously, it has just fully blown his career up.
Yeah, it's been great. And I love that it is largely responsible to the outrage of conservative Twitter.
Well, to me, it was just a preamble to what we've just seen happen with the Kamala stuff, or Kamala stuff.
Kamala.
Where basically they put out all these videos of her laughing, saying look how silly and flippant, and people love her.
Yeah.
People love the videos. And I can understand this whole weird movement against the GOP when everything they hate seems to be kind of awesome.
Yeah. People laughing. Oh my God.
The horror.
No American would laugh like that.
I think one of my favorite responses, so there was some football player who was making fun of Jason Kelce by tweeting the video.
Right.
Jason Kelce, brother of Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift's boyfriend.
Oh, thanks. I had no idea who we were talking about.
I think the audience could hear Dan's blank stare through the microphone.
Yeah. Once you got to Taylor Swift, that's a name I know.
But so Jason Kelce retweeted it and said, shit, I wish I could spit bars like that.
Right. So it's just sort of co-opting the hate and turning it into something authentic and loving. I also really appreciate, just as a side note to sort of this whole story, is that he doing this performance at this tiny venue in Austria. It really underscores how there are queer people everywhere.
Yeah.
And
the article says that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like he says this talking about it, like those people don't necessarily have access to like pride events or safe spaces to enjoy like queer arts and culture, and not just, like meeting other queer people in secret or whatever. And so being able to perform like that and bring queer positivity, and this is part of his music as he talks about queer sex and queer joy and queer sadness, all of the stuff that's part of his journey is told through story in his music as well. And so it really
all the stuff that reminds you about pride and why pride is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess this is a good segue because speaking of pride, to celebrate Pride and the release of their Lego botanical collection,
which I mean that deserves its own segment, but go on.
Yeah,
Lego botanical.
But Lego made this worked with some people to make this short film. I was trying to find the director's name, and it's just like in the corner of the video, and it's obscured by the little volume thing.
Oh, of course.
It's directed by Rose something.
But what is it?
But it is this just a very sweet video of this, kind of chub-chaser couple just talking about the relationship and how this one guy loves his chubby partner who is just quirky. And it's such a, I don't know, it's an advertisement, but it's just so innocuous and sweet and fun.
I think the thing I like the most about it is that it shows their dynamic, like the whole idea of it's like sometimes the season is awesome and sometimes it's flawsome, and it shows their dynamic of like one of the guys is sort of like the more like calm, neutral, like patient one. The other one is the and then the fat guy is like the really erratic, like let's go biking, and it's like 4 a.m. and like practicing karate in the background and like bringing all of like the life and enthusiasm to it. But then also at the end of this ad where his boyfriend has to be so patient with him, he brings the Lego set with the flowers and they get to build them together. And, it's obviously advertising, but it also feels cute in an authentic way. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They feel like an honest couple. It feels very real. They feel non-stereotypical. Advertising to your base, because the floral Lego stuff, I every gay couple I know, except for you two, has at least one in their house.
Oh my God. Oh my God. No, I really appreciate it because, the typical thing would be to make the fat guy just weird, but he's not. And he's endearing and he's quirky, but quirky and also in non-fat stereotypical ways. Like, let's go biking at 4 a.m. Like that is not a fat person trope.
And the chaser has sort of an eye-rolly quality, but it's not a negative one.
Never.
It's a loving eye-rolling quality.
It's like, oh, there he goes.
Yeah. Well, it's the quality of a couple that have been together for a while, where he understands the quirks and whatever, and it's not a problem.
Which is the point of the ad, because the slogan is that relationships like these Legos go through seasons. Because remember they're flowers. So they go through, and so they're, sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down, and that's how relationships go. And so it's just so very gentle and loving and wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I love that it is a mixed size couple that I'm going to call a chub-chaser couple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No reason not to. It's very clear to me. Yeah.
Oh God. There was a whole bunch of discourse about the term mixed size couple.
Oh, I know.
That went through social media. I don't even remember how it started. I think it was, there was an article about Bridgerton, the latest season.
Was there a lot of measured and reasonable discussion?
No. I was so glad we didn't have to talk about that.
Well, and then there's should it be mixed weight? Which I think is even, if you don't like mixed size, mixed weight is even worse. Yeah, and then there's I'm sorry, you understand.
We have mixed weight that aren't mixed size too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, most heterosexual couples are mixed weight.
Anyway, I want to thank the listener that sent this, because I don't really follow Lego, so I would not have seen this.
Yeah.
And it was a very, stealth campaign.
It's a sweet ad. It's worth looking up. It's a lovely little sweet vignette.
And we'll have a link to it, I'm sure.
Yes. 30 seconds long. Well worth a watch.
I'm ready for the wind, the change, the breeze.
Fat Watch 2024.
Yes.
You feel it, listener?
Take us away.
You're right. I do feel it.
Like that one gentle breeze during a stagnant summer night.
Oh, I thought that was just your CPAP machine.
I have a lot of feelings about this. So,
yeah, let's dive in.
Was it just once again? Since my mom has moved here, time has really been a challenge for me. Was it just last week that Southwest announced they are ending their open seating policy?
Well,
Yes.
they're going to end it maybe sometime soon. It's really super vague.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. So with closing their open seating policy, there's a lot of concern that their customer of size policy and their accommodations for disabled people might also get adjusted, changed, or gotten rid of because it couldn't possibly work the same way.
Yeah, so it would assign seats basically, and there are a lot of other changes too, like with baggage handling. And I can get into the reasons for this in a little bit. But the point is how it could impact customers of size is that one of the huge advantages of Southwest Airlines is that not only do you not pay for a second seat, but you can choose your seat before everybody else gets on the plane. Which, if you're trying to get down an aisle and you need something close to the front because that's where they load the plane, that is a huge thing rather than, okay, now I got to find two seats together somewhere and then try to get down the aisle. And plane aisles are not friendly to anybody.
Well, and so generally, like our experience at Southwest is we're familiar, we're very familiar with the policy. We book two seats for me, and then upon completion of travel, Southwest will refund the second seats after you submit a request for that.
And always, not just if they were, if they had space, they always refund.
With other, quote unquote competing policies, like Alaska Airlines, the best they'll do is they'll refund you that seat if the flight wasn't sold out. And as somebody who flies Alaska regularly for work, it's never not sold out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of fat people and probably a lot of listeners who have shown up fat at the airport, having purchased one seat and have gone to ticketing or just the gate agent, whatever, is like, okay, we gave you a second seat. You're going to pre-board, get your space.
Yeah.
Whatever. But even if they retain if you buy a second seat, whatever policy, you cannot show up fat anymore.
You'll have to buy two seats, float the cost, and then you'll get half of it back.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, presumably, we don't actually know how it's going to work. We don't know what they're going to do because they don't know what they're going to do yet. And
presumably the showing up fat part wouldn't work just because that assumes there's just a pool of seats to be pulled from rather than pre-assigned seats.
I just want to emphasize, we do not know anything they're contemplating. So it's not really useful for us to speculate.
So they're revoking the policy without having a new one in in
Not even
we
that.
don't even know that. Yeah, that's part of the problem. Is it's all up in the air, which is why if we could transition to the actual Fat Walks part. NAFA has created a petition and a set of requests for Southwest Airlines to address all of this inconsistency and to put measures in place to actually preserve the policies or even improve them, to partner with them. And also organizations representing people with disabilities in order to make sure that this is carried through to the next policy.
And I think that's why there is all of this concern, because there has been very little transparency. All of these organizations kind of have been talking to each other like, hey, did you talk to Southwest? Like, because no one has heard about this. And historically, there has been at various points contact between different airlines and different organizations to discuss like, hey, what do you think about this issue? Or, a severe lack of that, and organizations reaching out to airlines to try to have these discussions.
Right.
So this represents a massive change for Southwest, not just because it changes, seats, which is the most customer forward facing part. But see, do y'all remember way back a little while ago when Southwest had this complete meltdown throughout their system? And it's because their software is like from the 19th century. It is so friggin' old. And it's
operating on Windows XP.
Oh, maybe Windows.
Maybe they're that advanced.
Yeah, maybe. And you have to see, and that does two things. Number one, when something goes down, for example, their flight attendants aren't linked into the system, which is why when they had a system-wide failure, they had to manually call every single flight attendant to get them. But that's why it was such a massive breakdown. Okay, that's the downside. The plus side was in the most recent catastrophe in airline travel where they had this update to the system and it crashed everybody, particularly Delta. Southwest was completely unaffected because they're using rocks and stones to keep track of their flights.
I thought it was weird when they had to be an abacus instead of an e-pass.
Exactly. So and it also extends to certain policies. The reason that Southwest doesn't charge extra for baggage is because they can't track it like that. They don't have the systems to do that. The reason they let you sit anywhere is because they can't assign a seat. The technology doesn't allow it. So this is some sort of massive overhaul of their software system that will now allow them to do things that airlines have been doing since the 70s. So this could be interesting. Yes, Michael.
Well, only 18 months after the big breakdown. I'm impressed.
A point of order. I just was looking this up while you were talking because I was really curious what the actual answer is. And according to Tom's Hardware, which is a reputable hardware software, everything above review, forum, etc., they have an article posted a couple weeks ago, July 20th, 2024, that Southwest Airlines uses Windows 3.1.
There we go.
Oh my God.
There we go.
Windows 95.
Oh my God.
Which apparently actually saved them from issues that other airlines.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought that was hilarious.
They're too old to update. That's why they didn't get caught in that.
The biggest concern is that Southwest has been a standout for plus size people traveling because of the way they operate. And I think it is a guarantee that no matter what there's other airlines struggle with plus size passengers just because of the assigned seating. And it is just difficult to get two seats together. And because if anything gets shuffled around, those two seats will be separated or put somewhere inaccessible. And it's just it's so foreseeable. And I wonder if they have not said anything about it because they know it's going to be an issue and they are trying to ride the high of people being yes, finally assigned seating after all of the press they were getting for, conservatives discovering their customer size policy earlier this year.
How dare you accommodate people not like me?
And even if everything else actually goes the way that we hope it might, if they go to a similar system as every other airline, if you want to sit closer to the front of the plane, you pay more.
Yeah.
Oftentimes way, way more. And then add another seat onto that you have to, maybe you'll get it refunded if they keep that policy. You still have to front potentially a huge amount of money.
And that's just not accessible for everyone. That's
I promise you, some friggin' consultant told them they were losing out on hundreds of millions of dollars a year by not refusing to serve more people.
Yeah.
But if, I don't know, you're having feels, you don't know what to do, sign this petition that NAFA has because it is, there's already been one article about it since I made this episode outline in the Washington Post. I'll include it. It kind of breaks down exactly, I think even better than us, why this is an issue and the concerns that plus size passengers have, that disabled passengers have, that plus size passengers who are disabled have. Check it out, sign the petition, and keep your eyes peeled for more about this, because I'm sure there will be more.
We'll certainly keep abreast of this issue.
So, Dan, I'm a little curious about something.
Yeah.
So, I am a wide person. I have big hips, so I can understand people giving me a little bit of side eye when I'm trying to slide into a 10-inch seat next to them on the flight. I can get that. However, you and I also have very wide shoulders, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Now, I'm curious, as a bodybuilder, have you ever received any kind of negative, side eye from someone as you're trying to get into your seat next to them? Oh,
no. See, that's the double standard. See, if I'm too big for the seat, it's, wow, you're amazing. You're great. You must work out a lot. You must be so healthy. When you don't fit into the seat, what are you doing here, you fat fuck?
It's interesting. It's almost like there's a difference in perception of people in
as if.
bodybuilding and overweight people. Transition.
Oh my God.
Transition.
Never have we ever had a smoother transition.
I love it. I love it.
In the moment.
So can I keep
Fiddler on the Roof.
Can I keep the wave going since I discovered this?
Yeah,
Yes.
go for it.
So I don't know how I came across it, but because I'm not usually a frequenter of YouTube bodybuilding videos. I don't know how I found this, but anyway, I did see this bodybuilding coach. So he's I think he's a former professional bodybuilder. And, like anybody in the world today who is known by more than 6 people, he has his haters and his admirers. And so he does this video, which is basically bodybuilding or obesity, which is more unhealthy. Which to me knocked my eye out because I've been saying this for years, but holy shit, for a professional bodybuilder to be saying this is news, I thought. So
his name is Greg
Doucette, I think.
Doucette. Okay.
And what he does, and I've actually, if Michael, you want to include a little bit of the video, I've got a cue for you.
So you ever notice that bodybuilders or people that work out are generally specimens, freaks? They look amazing. They look down on other people who are obese, maybe think that they're healthier than them. Oh, you're obese. You're 50 pounds overweight, 100 pounds overweight. You're not healthy. Well, I'm here to argue that no, they're actually not, that the people who are obese are in fact healthier than the bodybuilders. And don't get pedantic and say, well, that 900-pound person is healthier than this natural bodybuilder. This is about, in general, overall, are bodybuilders healthier than people who are obese?
I so love this. Like I said, I've been saying this for a while, but people, it's like, well, if you're fat, you say this, well, it's because you're fat. If you're a chubby chaser and you say this, well, it's because you're a chubby chaser. But this is a professional bodybuilder saying it, and I just love that.
Well, Dan, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what his findings are? What does he say?
Exactly. So he starts with, and I love this. I have so many seminars that start this way. He's like, so when we say healthy, what do we actually mean? Thank you. And so he breaks down this idea that healthy does not just mean not sick and weak. So he breaks it down into there's social health, there's physical stamina, there's self-esteem issues, there's how your relationships, like health encompasses, also mental health and a whole bunch of other issues. And so he talks about well, let's look at, for example, social health. And he's like, well, if you're fat, you might avoid social situations because
I found this fascinating, by the way.
And it's true. And again, having more than dipped my toe in bodybuilding, fat people avoid things at the beach. They avoid this. And some people don't. Like some fat people are perfectly happy going out in public. But he talks about how bodybuilders, and this is so true, bodybuilders will avoid social situations if it conflicts with their dieting. I'm not going to go to Taco Tuesday with my friends because I'm prepping for a contest or because I'm trying to look great for my supporters on YouTube. So I can't go to Taco Tuesday. I'm going to stay home and eat mung beans and chicken breast.
So when he talked about that, I flashed to, there was a bodybuilder encourager that I was trying to hook up with, and it had to be our hookup had to be timed between his workout, but then also it couldn't overrun into his next macro meal prep thing, which he brought with him. And after we hooked up, he had to scarf down because he had started to spill into the eating window time.
Oh my God. I also thought it was fascinating. He was talking about how, with how scheduled your life has to be and when you get to sleep and, I don't want to stay out too late because I might go to sleep too late, and all not having the energy to go out to hang out with your friends too because of all of this. I know nothing about bodybuilding, so this was kind of just an interesting insight for me.
One of the things I found interesting about it also was he touches on the mental anxiety about appearance, feeling insecure in their appearance because they're always comparing themselves to other bodybuilders that they're aspiring to.
Yeah, I only have a 4-pack, not an 8-pack. I can't go out like this.
And it's, as a fat person who's only looked at my own experience, the concept of that was just bizarre to me, just utterly bizarre.
Well, virtually nobody is happy with how they look.
Yeah. And especially, you got to get a lot of fat people go, well, of course I'm not happy with how I look. What they don't realize is that bodybuilders, and I don't mean just like the roided out monsters that you see in heavyweight competitions. I mean, like most of the people that you're following as physique models on whatever social media, that's not a sustainable state of existence. I mean, there are either drugs or deprivation that help them stay that way. That is not a natural state. And what kills me is then that you have like these encouragers who are like, oh, so-and-so has let himself go. No, he just stopped starving himself for 3 months.
Well, so there was, Dan, I don't know if you remember this, a couple of weeks ago, a friend who is into bodybuilding or like just like follows a bunch of bodybuilders, has bodybuilder friends, shared a like kind of in memoriam post for a bodybuilder who passed away who was 31. But I was shocked to see the age because he looked so much older. And Dan was explaining that it's because he just like stay in peak form. He keeps himself dehydrated.
Well, there also,
something.
if you're going into any sort of competition, I mean, Michael's told these stories of like Henry Cavill, like he's shooting that bathtub scene in The Witcher and he doesn't drink fluid for 72 hours.
Yeah.
That is, that's bad enough. Imagine doing that as part of your career.
Well, and I want to point out, so Don and I worked on a gay rom-com a few years ago where the two lead actors were cast to be, very traditionally handsome, abs, but not bodybuilders the way that you would imagine. They're
exactly
just hot actors. And they, on this, indie movie that's not going to get seen by more than, a few thousand people, they had to do all of the same kind of stuff. And it was basically like, hey, like, are you comfortable? Like for this scene, we need you to be shirtless. And he's like, you fucking better have me shirtless. I've been starving myself for the last couple of days so that I can look the way I need to, to look in this scene. Like I've been prepping for this and not in a healthy way.
By the flip side, I know a couple actors who've shown up for a shoot after having cut down for literally weeks of low carbing and then 3 days of dehydration. And been told we can't shoot this today. We're going to have to delay for a week.
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah. Or delay 4 days or something like that. At which point the actor's like, you have to make a choice. Are you going to sacrifice your health and destroy yourself? Or are you going to stand and say like, you can't make this shot. You won't have this body for that shot.
Yeah. Right. And so there's two things that come from that. One is when they're done with that shoot and they don't have another one coming up for, let's say, a month or two, they binge because like, and I mean, if you've ever, and again, fat people so often will like rag on themselves for like, oh, I binged. I was on this diet and I binged. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do bodybuilders. Like, because that is a natural biological response to starvation.
Michael and I have a fitness model friend in common. When he cuts down, he is very serious about it, but he has a sugar reserve in his apartment that is beyond epic. It's literally like 3 garbage bags hidden in a closet filled with candy. And just like, it's crazy.
And so what Greg's point is in his video is basically, number one, a lot of the stuff that you think of as stereotypical unhealthy fat people behavior is at least as bad on the bodybuilding side, even for a casual bodybuilder. That's number one. Number two, he talks about how the fat people are probably healthier because they're not doing this cycling. They're not doing this binge, of binging and starving, which, hello, we call that yo-yo dieting. Mm-hmm. And so if you just stay fat and like leave it alone, you're probably going to be healthier than someone who's going through these horrible cycles, whether that's someone who is fat and gains and loses a bunch of weight over and over again, or a bodybuilder who's starving and binging and starving and binging. And the last point I want to bring up is this, because I thought this was genius. He talks about another thing about low testosterone in bodybuilders, because again, once you get off a cycle of steroids, you have low testosterone. You got to replace that somehow. And also the low testosterone that comes from contest dieting, because guess what? As anyone who knows about hormones, if you starve yourself, you make less of those things. And because we always talk about how like, oh, fat people have no sex drive. Well, neither do bodybuilders prepping for contests.
Also, can I just say, that ain't true.
Yeah. And so then he takes it into the final phase, which I love, which is relationship, because there's that whole stereotype of like fat people can't get laid, fat people no one wants to marry you if you're a fat person. And he talks about how in bodybuilding, and I think that's the thing that you were talking about, Trevor, where there's all this ritual and prep and everything is micromanaged. He's like, try being in a relationship with that. He says a lot of people, their bodybuilding relationships break up because their spouse cannot handle all of that attention to their body.
Yeah.
Like you can't go anywhere. You can't. What about taking care of the kids? It comes first. Well, especially if it's your career, or if it's your YouTube channel, or it's you're getting your OnlyFans income. It makes a difference. It makes a difference, especially when there's people waiting to slaughter you for the slightest misstep.
I mean, so there's something that's vaguely related to this topic that I think this is a good time to bring up. So we were talking about Richard Simmons in I think the last episode before hiatus, and he has since passed away. And there was an article that came out where they interviewed, they said his housekeeper, but then they also say she wasn't his housekeeper. Basically his like long-term platonic companion, like just someone who worked with him, but also was just like his closest partner. And she talks about kind of how at the end of his life, he was kind of hidden away. And that part of it was based on him feeling like he didn't look good, and that he was no longer this, Richard Simmons figure that everyone knew. And that if he reemerged, they would be shocked at his appearance and kind of,
it'd be
alluding to that he gained weight and that, his knees were bad.
Which is supported by some tabloid reports on him over the past 15, 20 years. They have not been kind to him when he has poked his head up.
And that he, when he passed away, he wasn't feeling well, and it was his birthday, and he didn't want to have to go to the hospital on his birthday. And like, how bad would that look? No. And that maybe if he had just allowed himself to go to the hospital and not been afraid of like how that would look, that he might still be alive. And I think it's just kind of tragic and related to this because there is so often the celebration of like when someone fat dies, it's like, you see, we told the fat person that they were going to die, but that there is this weird, when people who are perceived as fit die, and it's kind of related to their strive for fitness, that it is not talked about or not acknowledged.
Yeah.
Right. Point of order, the episode was 185, 4 episodes ago. But I think it's a really interesting point that like we don't scrutinize that kind of a death in nearly the same way. If it were some fitness influencer or something.
Now, while we're putting a spotlight specifically on bodybuilding, I think if you step back and you take sort of a broader look at it, the observations he's making about the effects on bodybuilding can really be applied to anyone that engages in what we can consider, I guess, body sculpting, right? Whether it's dieting to get your body size smaller, or I need to emphasize my breasts and figure out how to get them bigger and perkier. Like, it sloshes over into all of these things when we start playing with our bodies, right?
Yeah. And this is the distinction. See, I think there is such a thing as fat phobia, except it's not just people hating fat people. That's anti-fat bias. That's prejudice. That's discrimination. But the thing of fat phobia, and I remember I had a European friend say this decades ago. They're like, oh my God, Americans are so afraid of being fat. That's fat phobia. And that is what is driving everything we're talking about here of how would it look if I went to the hospital? How would it look if I only had a 4-pack instead of a 6-pack? It's that fear of how would I be perceived? And what's worse, it's an accurate fear. You will get slaughtered.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you think about it, at least in the context of like male bodybuilding, like the admitting any kind of fear is sort of the worst thing you can do as a man. So like running the opposite direction of that straight into, I have to look a certain way, which is the opposite of what I'm afraid of. And I can't admit that I'm afraid of it. It's like, it all feeds itself and it's really toxic.
So then think about, if we're talking about, men who are making a living from their bodies like that, imagine how much worse it must be for any woman where the default is your worth is your body.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think it also, like, we're looking at bodybuilding specifically here, and you're expanding it to just kind of existing in reality as a woman or, a femme. I think there's so much more in not looking at things that impact your body in sports, which we've talked about before, that, you know, the impact of, you know, the persistent traumatic head injury.
Oh yeah.
For football players,
Right.
the strain put on dancers' bodies, you know, their feet and their joints. There's so many ways that you can destroy your, you know, body that is praised and socially acceptable and
demanded.
Yes.
I would say, like, in the world, I follow soccer very closely, and professional soccer players / world football players, whatever, are being injured more and more and more frequently because the organizations that operate like tournaments and everything are forcing more and more playing time, more and more games, more and more ticket sales that they can't keep up. Like, they're playing more frequently now than ever before, and it is causing injuries, sometimes career-ending injuries.
I mean, imagine being a soccer player who said, I don't use my head in soccer. Imagine.
So, I mean, so what do we have to do as a society to be better to all bodies?
I mean,
like,
I think not glorifying body types, I think, is a starting place. That's my sense of it.
I feel like we pay a lot of attention to the not criticizing, but the not glorifying, that's pretty important.
Yeah, well, and it is, but I think the important thing about that, Don, that I've seen is that they're the same thing. Because, you know, if there is a body that is being injured in the course of, I don't know, whatever the activity is, it's so interesting how it's completely context dependent, whether we're glorifying that or vilifying that. And it's but for exactly the same trait. You know, the joke I used to tell is like, you know, if I get hit by a bus, it's a terrible tragedy because I was hit by a bus. If Trevor gets hit by a bus, it's because the fat fuck couldn't get out of the way.
Right.
It's the same incident. If, you know, whether it's a head injury, look, I mean, if a fat person gets a head injury, believe me, there's some way they try to tie it to why they were fat.
Right.
And otherwise, whereas if you're a soccer player, it's like, wow, he used his head so many times in the game. What a hero. Tragic, but what a hero. You know, it's just, it's unspeakable because they're identical results, but with different contexts.
Yeah. The thing that I flash to is the culture. Again, my access point to this discussion really is through soccer and that kind of athleticism. And there are many professional athletes, probably Cristiano Ronaldo at the top of that list, who glorify their own physique. But I thought there was this really interesting interview that I saw him do, because he's this like 6 foot something Adonis of one of the most successful and skilled soccer players ever. And people idolize him on Instagram and elsewhere for his physique specifically. And how dedicated he is and how much time he spends in the gym. And oh my God, if only I could love being in the gym as much as he does.
Oh my God.
And here's the thing. He went in an interview and he was like, nobody likes going to the gym. I don't like going to the gym. I do it. It's part of my job to do it. But like,
if I got paid as much as he does, I would go to the gym.
That's my thing. That is literally his job.
Exactly. It's his job.
It's his fucking job. He's being, and not just his job, like they pay him for it. They're paying him millions of dollars to do it.
And that's true of Hollywood stars.
Yeah.
You know, you get a trainer, and you are paid to get into that shape before the movie starts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, we have unrealistic expectations of our own, of our own resources.
I just think full-blown delusions. Yeah, it's full-blown delusion to think that that's even
fed by prejudice and anti-fat bias.
Like, there's only one Ronaldo in a world of how many billions of people? There's only one of him.
Yeah, and he's the example.
He's the exception that proves the rule, and even he is not immune to things like injury, and like it's just so insane to think that anybody should try and look like that in any normal day-to-day life.
It just requires dedication, Michael.
You gotta love it. You gotta love the gym.
You have to wake up at 4 a.m. and write 10 pages and then go walk on the beach with your coffee. And then at 6 a.m. you have your first meeting with for other people who also woke up at 4 a.m.
Yeah. No, I was
sound exhausting.
The big thing now in social media videos is the fat person who lost weight and is now a jock, is now a gym rat, is now a whatever.
Oh God, yeah.
And what kills me is if you listen to some of these over and over again, you hear they'll be like, yeah, when I was fat, no one will talk to me. And now everybody wants my phone number. Isn't that great? I'm like, so what you're saying is, what you're saying is that people treated you like crap when you were fat, but that's okay. They stayed the same. You changed your entire physiognomy so that you could fit in with them and be liked.
But so much behind that is also a sense of like, well, I deserved that.
I deserve that. Of course I feel better. Well, of course you feel better. People aren't treating you like shit.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you make it to the other side of that system, then you have to think that way.
You do. And really, that's a good point, Michael, because if you really buy in, the only way you can get to the other side is by buying into it. Yeah, you have to buy into it. Yeah. You have to, because otherwise you'd stop.
Yeah. Oh boy. Love yourself, people.
Yeah.
Don't hold yourself to the delusions of society does.
Trevor, do we have a lovely tip for today?
We do. The tip is just a reminder to sign the NAFA's petition to get kind of, Southwest to listen to.
I signed it.
Fat folks and
it's
disabled
super
folks.
easy.
I signed it too.
Super easy.
Yay.
Very worth it.
Yep.
So, as our bit today, since we were talking about fitness influencers and Richard Simmons and the like, we have had many complaints over the years about various fitness trainers and influencers. What is the name of Jillian? What's her face?
Who cares?
To this day, she is one of the most vile pieces of trash on this earth to me. Based on stuff, I don't even remember what she said.
She was the original podcast enemy. She was.
I have hated her ever since then, and I don't even remember why she pissed me off.
Michaels,
so much.
Jillian Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
No, and screaming at fat people, to not be losers.
So but I don't think like being an inspiration to other people to try and find new ways of being healthy and happy is a bad thing. I think we can make good fitness influencers. So what we have done today is each of us are bringing a quality to our new Frankenstein fitness influencer, Frankenfluencer to the table, right?
That's the title of this episode. I have one. I have
Michael,
one if you're ready. I have a trait. I have a trait that I would contribute. This is a mental trait that I think would make this particular fitness influencer, combined with other good traits that we can contribute, a good person, which is they truly 100% do not care what people think about them.
That's impossible.
I know, but not the adulation, not the criticism. They are just completely immune, and I think particularly immune to the praise, so that they don't get too high on themselves. I think that is something that I would love to.
Well, when Dr. Manhattan has his own influencer channel, I think that would be.
We need a true neutral. We need the center.
I imagined Dr. Manhattan just come vaporizing Jillian Michaels,
or just like, I'm tired of listening. I'm going to go forward 100 years when she's gone.
Yeah.
Dan, I'm curious. You've got a foot in this world. What do you think would be of most benefit to a good influencer, so one that's on the side of righteousness?
I'm going to get practical because I've actually seen this type of influencer starting to emerge, and I think it's important. And I want to encourage people to look for them if they haven't found them. And this is the kind of what we've been talking about. This is the former fitness model, the former 8-pack and all this stuff, and documenting their journey into happiness by not living that way anymore. And they're like, yep, now I have a belly and I've never been happier because now I can eat normal foods. And I really want to see that get more traction of like how much better I feel since I stopped worrying about looking like a cartoon character from the 80s.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I got to say that one dovetails with mine. So I'm going to glom onto yours. I was in my head, I was thinking of the dad bod influencer, but I want somebody with a body that isn't chiseled into an unrealistic form that looks like a comic book to me, right?
Yeah.
That looks like a statue, because I don't see myself that way. I don't want to get there, right? And it makes me uncomfortable having it pushed in my face the way I have with some of the trainers I've worked with.
Right. Or that the absurd and lie of a notion that is health. That's what kills me. It is the opposite of health.
Don, I thought you liked having things pushed in your face. Was I wrong?
We'll talk about that on a behind the scenes video. Our Patreon listeners will get to appreciate. Moving on.
New expose, things in Don's face.
It's perfect that I'm last, because I was hoping I would be last. What I am bringing to this is that it is not one person. It is a team.
Yes.
It is like the Burger King Kids Club.
Awesome.
Because
the team up.
People are not, the fitness is not a monolith. People are not a monolith. And I think having kind of like just seeing how different people with different perspectives and different lived realities approach fitness or just movement, and seeing how things can be adapted, or just how like different ways to do things for different abilities, I think is important. And I think just like, I mean, one of the things we've talked about that we loved about Richard Simmons is that he had different bodies in his videos. And that was the first time that a really widespread audiences saw that. Other people may have been doing it, but it was the first time that it was really that the public got to see that. And I think that is, I don't know, a team. We're building a team.
I like, Trevor's idea. Now, this is a terrible movie if you're trying to avoid being fat slimed, but Trevor's idea does remind me of the Average Joe's dodgeball team from the movie Dodgeball. Of just like the skinny little teen, the pirate, the regular guy, the nerd, all the different types banding together to have fun playing dodgeball together.
So, dear listener, would you pay attention to any advice from our Frankenfluencer? Trevor, where could they tell us about that?
Well, we're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. I don't update the Twitter anymore. Or on Facebook as Big Fat Gay Pod, the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars or a review on your preferred podcast platform. Support us on patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgay.com.
It's a website.
So close.
Yeah.
So
It's the name of the podcast.
BigFatGayPod.com, baby.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
It has been a minute.
You're back. We're back. You're approaching the end of the episode. You're all caught up. You've caught up on all the Patreon episodes that you subscribed to during the dry times. And you're back to having to wait. But there's something. It's a glowing orb descending from the sky. And then just with a flourish, it's Michael. Oh, I guess watch out.